inspired to push through? Because there's a spark in you. Breakthrough or bust. Hello, hello. Welcome back to Breakthrough or Bust. And I am super excited today to have my guest, Shari Johnson from Happy Vibes Health. And Shari, tell us a little bit about what you do at Happy Vibes Health.
Sure. So I am a menopause health coach. So I work exclusively, obviously, with women, usually starting, 40 and beyond, where hormones start to fluctuate. And, with that comes, all different sort of new challenges. A lot of it is, weight gain, sleeplessness, brain fog, hot flashes, and every woman's different, so every experience is different, but I help them using holistic methods to really be able to become empowered on their health journey and really start to minimize those symptoms and really just have an incredible, powerful third age of their life.
Yeah. And, the reason I'm so excited is, of course, this is breakthrough or bust, and menopause can really be a breakthrough for so many women. And yet, there can also be very little information, very little support, just very little when it comes to menopause, which is something that every single woman will eventually go through. And that accounts for half of the population. And yet, there's still so little. So I'm so excited to have someone like you who is bringing attention to this area and almost, bringing new life and celebration to it. So
yeah, thank you.
I
Well,
would, yeah,
I
go.
was going to say, and it's interesting that, you were mentioning as far as like resources that we as women have. And it's a little staggering because several years ago, Johns Hopkins actually did a study on its OB/GYN residents, and fewer than 1 in 5 had any menopause training.
Wow.
So these aren't even just, general practitioners. These are our, OB/GYN. And another study actually, the doctors were like, oh, well, we'll just pick it up along the way, which is, again, I find it infuriating that that's sort of how we're being put on the back burner. But also, that just seems so cavalier to say, oh, I'll just pick it up along the way. Like, oh, it's no big deal.
Yeah.
And it just, it really, that's like
truly,
one of my motivators.
It could be a practice in its own. That could be its own independent specialty.
It really could.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about your challenge, sort of what inspired you to get into this.
Yeah. So, for me, what inspired me was really my own menopause journey. And I'm going to kind of go way, way back to when I was in my 20s, and I actually was diagnosed with quite a severe case of endometriosis. And so for the very first year after diagnosis, they put me on a very strong medication called Lupron, which actually put me into a state of temporary menopause. So I got a very, very big taste of what the future could hold when I was only, say, 24 years old.
Wow.
And the hot flashes, the rage, like all these things that I had no control over. And, luckily that only lasted a year. But then they put me on birth control all the way until I was about, I think, like 52 or 53. And then one day the doctor just said, you know what, you're going off birth control because you're in menopause. And that was all that was said. And it was very emotional for me at the time because, number one, those birth control pills had become almost like a security blanket to me. That's what was kind of keeping my, feminine organs sort of intact.
Yeah.
And then I was just left with the question of, well, what's next? Like, what's going to happen to me? And I remember I was on vacation with my then husband, and I was sitting at the pool, and I just felt this immense amount of shame and loneliness and loss of my femininity. And I honestly had no idea where to turn to. And, this was just something that, I kind of had to dig deep and go, okay, so when I had other health challenges, I'm one of those people who are like, all right, I'm not going to just rely on doctors. I'm going to rely on what I can do for myself. So I started thinking, is there anything I can do with, my diet? Is there anything I can do with exercises? And then, I started to gradually be able to help myself to the point of where I feel really great now. And I really feel like all the fear, all the shame I had years ago, it's kind of, it's 2020 hindsight, right? All of a sudden I was just like, why was I so worried? I'm like, my life is so phenomenal. I'm in such good health. I feel great. I have oodles of energy. My sleep is amazing. And I just thought, I never want another woman to wake up one morning and have those same feelings, and especially that feeling of not knowing what's coming next. So I ended up going back to school. I became a certified health coach and immediately knew that what I really wanted to do was start to, and I don't like to use this word, but normalize menopause.
Yeah.
Because it's still one of those things that I feel like it's whispered. I feel like we as women, might talk to like our sisters or girlfriends. It's almost like we're back in junior high.
When you first get your period.
Yeah. Like, what should I do? What do you do? Is this normal?
Yeah.
And it's so silly. We shouldn't be at that point in this day and age.
Yeah. Oh, and you touched on something there, and I didn't even have this realization until you said it, but just that idea of losing your femininity and your worth, and because you were losing a menstrual cycle. And on one hand you think about that and it's like, well, that makes no sense, but on the other hand, culturally, that is what women are expected to do, to reproduce. And there's many women who choose not to, and they really have to stand strong behind that decision. You see that they get a lot of lashback, even not intentionally, but it's just we're so culturally programmed for it to be a certain way that when something doesn't go that way, we maybe not even intentionally react, but we react.
Yeah. And I did suffer with the endometriosis, because I wasn't able to have kids because of it, and we chose not to adopt, but I did get a lot of backlash, and it was almost like people just see that as part of a woman's duty to have children. And you know what? If you want children, I think that is like the greatest blessing in the world. But if you choose not to, I think that is absolutely fine.
Well, I always say that I celebrate. I mean, I knew very early on I wanted to have children, and that's great. I had them. I'm good. But I celebrate people who say I don't want them and don't have them, because that's not a decision that should be made by, society. That's your decision.
Right.
So yeah. But that's really an interesting dynamic that had not even entered my thought yet, that you could feel like you're losing, your femininity when you are losing your menstruation, and when you think about it, like the girls in middle school, in the bathrooms, like, it was like, oh, you're still little because you don't have it yet. Like
Yeah.
it is that sort of sign of womanhood. And then,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's, and I think the other thing that starts to happen is, again, because our hormones start to fluctuate, there's so many things that women feel like they're losing control of.
Mhm.
The weight gain starts to come on, especially in the belly area, sleeplessness, brain fog, and that all of those things too affect, how you're performing in your career, how you're performing in your relationships, be it with your partner or your children or your friends.
Mhm.
And I think for some women, it becomes so almost debilitating.
Mhm.
And again, because the resources are so limited, they don't realize everything that they have within their own power to really create the best health that they can and really to minimize those symptoms.
Yeah. And, again, like I go back to that whole breakthrough thing, when you're on this side of the breakthrough and you
Mhm.
don't know what's on the other side, it can be overwhelming. It can be scary,
Mhm.
and there's always that breakdown before the breakthrough. And we don't know what to do. And, this is one where you're going to keep getting pushed through. But
Mhm.
once you do, it's almost like on the other side is that other piece of your life that's just for you.
Mhm.
It's like,
Very, yes, very,
yeah, this
very
is
true.
this is the time of you. You're not breeding anymore. You're not, sacrificing yourself, raising others, taking care of everybody else. Like, this is the time when you get to be there for you. And
Mhm.
not just that, but like with so much wisdom.
Mhm. And I think as women, it's just, we're so natural as far as nurturing, taking care of others, always kind of putting ourselves last.
Mm,
And this really starts to become a time in life where we really can rise up to the top of our priority list.
yeah.
And, they've done, studies where the mindset that women have going into menopause is really critical as far as how well you can experience menopause. In some cultures, they're usually more Eastern cultures, it's actually celebrated. It's
Mhm.
looked at something like, yes, you have like achieved a certain status that you are older and wiser and valuable. And because of that mindset, the symptoms of menopause have been significantly reduced in those cultures.
That's amazing.
Mhm. So it really, again, it's that idea of trying to make it not such a, I don't even want to use the word taboo subject, but yeah, this subject that really so few people, including women, really want to talk about.
Well,
I
the
do
word
think
that
it's getting
keeps
better
coming to
though.
me is shame. And it's
Mhm.
so funny because it's all the way through. It's like, this big chunk of a woman's life, but it's like, oh, shame going into it. Now
Mhm.
you're, not just a little girl anymore. And, and then
Mhm.
this shame, like, my monthly friend. And like, no,
Yeah.
we talk about it in codes and,
Mhm.
when we're buying the supplies, we're kind of hiding them or,
Exactly. And
you know,
and and it's so true. From the time we were very little, for some reason, from the very first time of getting our period, it was like that's something that you don't really talk about. Yeah, you
yeah.
have like no one says it's a menstrual cycle. Everybody's like, oh, my friend or Aunt Flo came into town. And exactly like, oh my God, heaven forbid you ask a man to go buy tampons. If
Oh my
you want to
goodness.
see a man squirm, he would so rather do anything else.
Yep.
And I'm like, what? Why?
Yeah.
It shouldn't be like this.
No. And so just, when you think about that whole cultural experience, and then now you get to the end of it, and now it's even more shame. So, but I think we're starting to see more of that embracing at the beginning. Like I see the moms who do red parties for their daughters when they begin. Yes. And so I think with people like you, we're going to have to bring it now to the end and embrace it and celebrate. And again, it's almost like this new life that you're going to experience, this new phase of you 2.0,
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, so, I know since I've gone through menopause, I've gotten divorced. I'm dating a phenomenal guy right now. I've started a brand new company. I honestly can't really think of any negatives.
That's wonderful. I love it. And I know you said you used a lot of, different method, like a lot of different remedies or, food-based. What are some of the things that you explored?
For me, and this is something that probably all people, both men and women, can probably incorporate into their diet, but I really walked away from processed foods. I've eliminated dairy, I've eliminated sugar. And when I say these things like I have eliminated them, it's like 90 to 99% of the time. But you know what? Shoot, if I want some Ben and Jerry's, I'm going to dig in. So I don't want to deprive myself. And I've eliminated a lot of just, the processed carbs.
And that doesn't even have to be something that you wait until menopause, because truly getting rid of that now, will reduce any kind of PMS symptoms or, anything, cramps and mood swings and, all of that stuff that women tend to experience as a result of a regular menstrual cycle. Yeah.
And also, just doing those things too really helps your body maintain a hormonal balance. Also really important, obviously, working out, strength training is great, but also, having a more like relaxing type workout where you're either just walking or doing yoga or Tai Chi, because what can happen is if you start to gain weight as you're going through menopause, your first thought is, I'm going to not eat anything and I'm going to work out like crazy. And what that does, it puts your body in a state of stress.
Yeah.
Which means that
cortisol,
producing more cortisol and
sort of more belly fat.
Exactly. And sort of the highway of the hormones, that the highway that cortisol travels on is the same highway progesterone travels on. And if your body is in a state of stress, it's going to say, hey, we need that cortisol more than we need progesterone. So it's actually called the pregnenolone steal, where instead of your body producing more progesterone, it's going to steal what it needs to make even more cortisol. Now that's important because progesterone is our calming hormone. So that's where we're going to end up sleeping better. That's where our mood's going to be a little bit more even keel. We're not going to feel so PMS-y. And so that's another reason why, keeping stress at bay. Same thing with sleep. Sleep helps keep those hormones, in the best balance it can. And, and then after menopause, really, once our ovaries have shut down and really no hormones are being produced by them, the little bit of, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone that is produced are going to be produced by the adrenal glands, which is the same glands that are responsible for cortisol and epinephrine and adrenaline. So again, you don't want to have that fight between, what is your body going to make, because your body's always going to opt for survival over reproduction.
And what I keep hearing from you is just really that relax, let go.
Yes.
Just have the experience. And that's with everything, when we clench too tight, we block things, we make it worse, So just, and just like when you think about when you're going to have a baby, right? And you create this birth plan, but the woman who is too committed to that birth plan and unwilling to bend or be flexible is going to have a horrible birthing experience. So you have this plan, but you got to relax and let nature take its course.
Breathe through it.
Breathe through it. That's it. And it's so funny. I always said to both of my children through potty training, like, listen to your body because it's always going to win.
Mm-hmm.
It really does apply for so many other things.
Yeah. And, and it's funny. I do think we need to listen to the body. And I think just over time, we just lose that natural, that our natural wisdom of what our body is telling us and what we need. And I think if we can get back in touch with that natural wisdom, our body will tell us what it needs to eat, how it needs to move. And again, the body wants to be in a state of health. Oops, sorry about that. Sorry about that.
That was just for you if you're listening just by audio.
Yes, American Girl is my ringtone. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
But yet, no, our body wants to be in a natural state of health and balance and well-being. So again, if we are in touch with that natural wisdom, that intuition, our body will tell us what it needs.
Yeah. So you're going to get me right on my soapbox. This is one of my big things. We're programmed to disconnect from our body. If there's a pain, take an aspirin. If there's this, ignore it. We just always, and so what happens, the body shuts down. It's kind of like the little kid who ignores the signals to go potty. After a while, they stop coming and it just happens. Like you don't get the warning. So, after a while, your body will revolt. And I always say too, that it's like a relationship. If you're in a relationship with somebody and they're constantly communicating with you and you're ignoring them, it's not a healthy relationship. It's not going to go well, and the same thing happens with your body. So then the more you listen to it and the more you get into that place of honoring those signals like you're talking about, it's just, the intuition develops so much stronger and it really starts to change your entire life. When you think about going outside of yourself, a lot of people, really are challenged with making decisions, and they go and they ask everybody their opinions and they try to pro and con. But if you're connected to yourself, you don't need to ask anybody.
Yeah. And, and additionally, it's that idea too, that, we have to be very careful with our thoughts and our words about ourselves and our body, because our body is always listening and our cells will respond to that energy of our emotion. And it will react. And there, again, have been scientific studies, this isn't just, sort of the woo-woo side of things. There have literally been scientific studies based on, what they're calling the biology of belief. And, if you speak kindly and positively to your body, it reacts that way. Versus if you're, negative and you're always beating up on yourself, your body responds to that too. So it's kind of like you're saying, you are in a relationship with your body. And, how would you treat your best friend?
Would you talk to your partner that way? Would you tell them, you big fat ass? Like, no, you would never.
Exactly. Like when you really think about all the things we say to ourselves, would we ever say that to our child, or our best friend, or our partner? Never.
No. And, I'm at an age where, and you and I had talked a little about that, where I am noticing a little bit of shift in some weight gain and stuff. And I really had to check myself because I was starting to, what is this? What is happening? And then I was like, well, wait a second. What I focus on grows. And if I'm going to be doing that, then that's going to grow, So you really have to, and write affirmations on your mirror, or just put that stuff all around you, because
And really feel it. Like if you're going to do those affirmations, really create that feeling of that affirmation too.
Yeah. 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 See yourself as that. And, that's where body dysmorphia even comes in, that person who has an eating disorder and, we see them as so skinny and they don't because they've been feeding their brain that they're not, and that's all they see. So,
Exactly.
feeding your brain is, not you tricking yourself, right? It's not a way of tricking yourself into feeling thin when everybody else doesn't see it. It's making it see what's actually there, and maybe even creating more
Yeah.
of the same.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. So talk to me, because I'm just mentioned that, hey, I'm at an age where these things are starting to come up. And I know, of course, everybody is going to start seeing things at different ages. And I know you've talked about the younger, the better, to have more of a smooth transition. So, as a menopause coach, what would you say, like, I guess, when should somebody come and talk to someone about this? Like what type of things would you be seeing or feeling or?
One of the first things that women really start to experience as the hormones start to fluctuate, it's really progesterone that starts to dip first. And so the first few things that women are going to start seeing is probably more extreme PMS. All of a sudden, they're going to feel like they can't sleep as well. And they're going to start to, they're just not going to feel quite like themselves.
Yeah.
And those are like the first few, like, I shouldn't say warning signs, but those first few signs that your hormones might be fluctuating a little bit.
And I love that you say that, because there's so many times you go to a doctor and it's like, something's off. I don't quite feel like myself. And they're like, well, there's nothing there. Do you have a mental health issue? No, I know my body. Yeah. And
more
so
antidepressants are prescribed.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Because doctors they don't know how to recognize the menopausal symptoms.
And there it is. And so that is more of that trusting your body. Your body is telling you now, and there's nothing wrong with you. You're shifting, things are changing, and we just, we might want to help it here or supplement it there, or,
and that's a great point too. There's nothing wrong happening. This is a perfectly natural, normal, healthy part of a woman's life.
Yeah.
It's not an illness. It's not a sickness. It's not something that, should be treated that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm tempted. I'm like refraining, but I just have to say, if men went through this, it was like all we would talk about. It would be like so commonplace. We'd all be like, oh,
Oh yeah.
So we don't need to hide in shame. We don't need to feel like less of a woman than we once were. I don't know. I think of course, we're often so influenced by culture, by Hollywood, by, where no matter what age a woman is, she's played by a 20-year-old, and so that will start to mess with your head without you even realizing it. And, truly, the woman who is stepping into this phase, like they talk about these 7-year phases for the woman, and as you get into this part of the life cycle of your life cycle, it's really just all about becoming that empowered, wise woman. Like this is the person that was revered for so long because she was so intuitive and knowledgeable and wise, and like it honestly kind of scared people how powerful she was. And I think that might be why we see so
And
much of the backlash. Like once upon a time, to call a woman a crone was a compliment.
mhm.
Now, no woman wants to be called that.
And I think you really touched on something very powerful, is the idea that I think the power that is naturally within us as women as we get to this age, I think became more than, see, I don't want to throw men under the bus, but more than men or society could handle. And so
Yeah.
I think they needed to suppress it. And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that's where a lot of this started.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be all men, it was just some guy who was in power who was threatened by a woman who was, you know, looking too powerful to him at some point. And
Mm-hmm.
there we go, so it doesn't have to be a total bashing of any one particular group. But yeah, I think as, if we as women see this as a chance to step more fully into our power,
Mm-hmm.
instead of oh my God, what is happening to me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What an amazing change.
And,
What a shift will happen.
years ago, I always would say, oh, I want to age gracefully, but I've recently updated that to, I want every woman to age gracefully and
Mm,
powerfully.
yeah. Oh,
That's what I want.
I love it. I love it. Oof. That's it right there. I love that. So, as we kind of pull it all together, what is, your pearl of wisdom, as the empowered, wise woman? What is it either you wish you knew as you went through your challenge with it, or that you would just like to, share?
Mm-hmm. I think for me, what I wished I knew is that I wasn't all alone.
Mm, yeah.
And I think we've touched on it as we're moving forward. I think I think women in general, I think we are becoming more empowered in, our voices of what's happening, with our bodies, and that embarrassment, that shame, we're really starting to shed that.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Oh,
I don't want any woman to feel alone during this.
I love that. Oh, and what a great time to reach out to someone like you, Shari, at Happy Vibes Health.
Yes.
What a perfect time. Yeah. Shari, thank you so much for being
Thank
here. I think
you.
this was such an important conversation to have. So for you who are listening, as soon as I talked to Shari, I was like, I feel like that needs to be a conversation on Breakthrough or Bust, because it really is just this other breakthrough that we're all going to experience at a certain point. And I am so grateful that she was willing to be here to share this story with us. And thank you so much, Shari.
Thank you for having me.
So, of course, reach out to Shari at Happy Vibes Health, and share this with somebody who you think could really use this message, because again, the more we share, the more we release the stigma, the more we empower ourselves and each other, and it just becomes this ripple. So like, subscribe, comment, do all the good stuff, and be amazing. Keep pushing through, because there is a spark in you.